Welcome and salutations. My name is Joshawn Phillip, and my presentation is on evil influencing greater evil. So my question is, does doing evil make it easier to commit further evil? The required reading is by Martins et al., and it's called Evidence from Bug Killing Paradigm, that initial killing fuels subsequent killing. Now before I touch on that topic, I'd like to discuss something else, and that would be, does killing become easier? A prime example of this would be the fictional character The Punisher. Whether you've seen him on Netflix with the amazingly well-produced gruesome scenes or read about it in the comics, you know that Frank Castle has had a difficult life. Growing up and joining a special armed forces in the military is no small feat, and one he was exceptionally good at. After retiring from the life of war, he settled with his family until his past dealings caught up with him, ultimately killing his family and pushing him into a life he wanted to leave behind. As the Punisher seeks revenge, you begin to notice how much of a force to be reckoned with he becomes. You begin to wonder how he manages to rip through all the carnage and how easily he can move on to his next target. Could it be the driving force of the death of his family, or a defensive function he developed to justify his actions? We'll see soon enough through this presentation on whether or not one or the other is occurring. So I'd like to talk about some key theories and a general background of the study. First, I'd like to talk about how killing seems to continue even without retaliation. This could be due to a sense of responsibility, or maybe because someone wants to follow an order. Secondly, that initial killing will eventually lead to more killing. And I have a quote from Martins et al. Saying, "The degree of coarse initial killing determines the frequency of later killing as a function of perceived similarity," which means that initial killing determines the amount of killing, later killing, if one is the same. And I'd like to touch upon this topic called affect, which means to touch feelings of or being emotionally involved, which will come up later on as we get to the third study. So, the researchers conducted 3 studies that measured at different capacities of killing and the subsequent self-paced killing. So, in a broad sense, researchers wanted to test if killing begat more killings and conducted 3 experiments to do so. The first study that they conducted contained 74 intro to psychology students at the University of Arizona. Researchers tested a hypothesis of perceived similarities to insects and how relationships to self-paced killing depended on participants who were first coerced to kill. Researchers obtained similarity measures weeks prior on a massive survey session. The measure consisted of a 1 to 9 similar or not basis, and the researchers were blind to these ratings. The cover story was done by bringing participants in 1s or 2s to the lab, and they were told the study was about how people in different roles deal with different animals. Researchers emphasized that today would be the day that they observed exterminators and the way that they dealt with bugs. Participants were notified that a questionnaire about how they felt would occur, and that they would sign a consent form if they wished to continue. Then participants were led to cubicles, one containing equipment for the extermination task at hand. Researchers told the participants that they would become familiarized with the task at hand, and that the desk in front of them contained the extermination device, which was made up of the stainless steel coffee grinder, with a safety interlock top removed and a single piece of brass tubing. Inserted at the base of the tube was an unseen stopper, which prevented the bugs from actually being killed by the blades. Torn bits of paper were used to stimulate the grinding effect of the bug. Researchers explained that exterminators generally use poison sprays to treat these bug issues, but due to health and safety issues, this was prevented from happening, explaining why the study at hand was occurring. The initial kill participants were asked to pick up a bug and dump it into the grinder and press the activator for at least 3 seconds. The no initial kill participants were brought to the extermination cubicle, introduced to the materials and procedures, and shown what the bug looked like. The participants then went back to the original cubicles to read about the bugs. Researchers then asked participants to put bugs into the grinder for a 20-second period and were instructed to wait until the researcher left to put the bugs in one by one. After the 20-second period, participants were brought back to the original cubicle, and researchers recorded the amount of bugs they killed. Participants were then presented with a final questionnaire about their experience of the extermination task and the perceptions of the bugs. The questionnaire included the expanded positive and negative affect schedule, or PANAS-X, to measure a participant's affect. Following that, the participants answered 6 questions on a bipolar 9-point scale ranging from 1, not at all, to 9, completely. The first couple of questions were used to understand perception of choice throughout the study, saying things like, at what extent did you feel the killing of the bug was your choice? Participants included in the initial killing conditions were asked during the acquainted process of what the extermination was like, what extent did putting the pill bug in the grinder was your choice? The final 2 questions talked about how similar participants felt towards the pill bugs, asking questions like how similar or how different do you feel towards the pill bugs? And then finally, participants are probed and debriefed for suspicion, revealing that they had not killed any bugs and that the potential application for the future of the study. And so afterwards, the data gathered resulted in this. So the first graph shows here that the similarity to bugs and the number of bugs killed in a 20-second period. So as similarity increases, less bugs are killed in a non-initial kill group. The initial kill group, though, shows that as similarity increases, more bugs are killed. This is due because of a flat line during the initial kill group, there shows a no relationship between killing bugs and the similarity of bugs. The graph also shows as similarity rises for non-initial kill, less bugs are overall killed. The second graph shows that how participants perceive choice in killing the bugs. The graph shows how much free will the initial group has. The initial kill felt as though the killings weren't of their own due to a defensive function to justify the subsequent killings, whereas during the 20-second period, participants felt that the killings were of their own accord. So this concludes the first part of the study. Researchers then wanted to see how much initial killing influenced more killings, which they proceeded to view in Study 2. So Study 2 had 53 participants that were also intro to psychology students at the University of Arizona. The procedure was very similar to Study 1, but the only thing that they changed were the conditions. Instead of having a non-initial killing versus initial killing, they upped the ante by testing 1 initial killing versus 5 initial killings, to test the magnitude and to see if it influenced greater killings. So the first graph here shows that 1 initial kill condition shows there was no relationship between the number of bugs killed and participants' perceived similarity to bugs, whereas in the 5 initial kill condition presents a positive relationship between number of bugs killed and the similarity to bugs. This graph ultimately shows us that as participants' similarity rises, so does the amount of bugs they killed. The second graph here shows that is also very similar to Study 1, showing that participants perceived free will to initial killings versus their 20-second period. Participants felt as though that the initial killing hindered their choice in the matter, whereas in the 20-second period, you can see that they felt more the choice was in their hands. So, in the first study, they found that affect had no real correlation with participants, and likewise in this study, in Study 2, no real significance was seen as well. So for the third part, in Study 3, they chose to focus on affect on participants. So in Study 3, there were 28 participants who were from the previous studies who expressed some degree of similarity. The structure was exactly like the structure of Study 2, and that the past 2 studies did not annotate the perception of negative emotions after killings. So the researchers implemented more surveys. The PANAS-X was given to participants after the initial kill, and then once again after the 20-second period. So this graph shows the number of killed bugs during the 20-second period versus the initial killed in both 1 and 5 accordingly. For the 1 initially killed bug condition, less bugs were killed in the 20-second period, versus in the 5 initially killed bugs condition, more bugs were killed. This shows that as more bugs are killed initially, then more will be killed in the 20-second period. So this chart shows how correlations between self-paced killing and effective change as a function of initial killing. So if a number has a negative sign in front of it, it usually means there's a decrease or a negative correlation. Likewise, if a number is positive, it shows an increase or a positive correlation. So when looking at the change in overall affect when dealing with 1 initially killed bug, you can see that there is a negative correlation causing a decrease, whereas for 5 initially killed bugs, there is an overall increasing correlation, showing that their overall mood was more positive. For a change in positive affect, for 1 initially killed bug, this shows a less positive mood afterwards, whereas for a 5 initially killed bug, they had a positive mood afterwards. When change in negative affect was recorded, this showed not as much as significance for the 1 killed bug, but the decrease in negative affect shows great significance in the 5 killed category. And finally, change in guilt shows that in the 1 initially killed bug condition, an increase in guilt, whereas for 5 initially killed bugs shows a decrease in guilt. The stars show a significance in change for the 5 initially killed bugs. So overall, the 1 initially killed bug seems to change and decrease in overall affect, decrease in positive affect, increase in negative affect, and increase in guilt, showing that overall their mood was very low. Whereas in the 5 initially killed bug, all the participants' mood seems to be apparent and positive. So, going back to the original question, does doing evil make it easier to commit further evil? So, from what I perceived in this study, it is fair to state that evil doing begets more evil doing because of an increase in defensive function, ultimately leading to greater evil. I believe this because the information shown above shows us that as people kill more, they feel less desensitized and have more cognitive dissonance towards further killing, making it easier to kill. So for the syllabus timeline, I believe that this study should be placed after DP6, obedience and conformity, and before DP7, the dark tetrad, because it is a good segue from obedience and conformity, how they influence evil doing and how they control someone's emotional state, and it's perfect right before the dark tetrad, where it shows it can lessen their strengths on evil doing. And these are my references. Thank you for your time.